You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Monday. It is 2 p.m. Central. It is 3 p.m. Eastern. It is time once again to talk a little bit of crypto. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the THE, optionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many people are binging these days. Did you miss us last week? Yeah, we were down at the Futures Industry Association Conference, a big annual gathering of pretty much the global derivatives industry, all in one place, all in sunny Boca in mid-March. There are worse places to be in mid-March. And the interesting thing is this conference just a few years ago was overrun by crypto folks, at least according to some of the traditional futures and options folks. They did not like seeing so many crypto folks on their doorstep. SPF was there talking all sorts of fun. And then lo and behold, not so much this year, even though crypto very much on the rampage right now, and a lot of attention on that space. Not a lot of presence at the show this year, which is kind of interesting. Maybe some folks still feeling a little bit burned from the whole FTX debacle and the ensuing drama there. But intriguing stuff, a lot of interesting stuff going on, even though not a lot of crypto, which was fascinating. If you like things on the network, if you find those fascinating, by all means, leave a rating, a comment, a rating, review. All that does help people continue to discover the content. If you want to discover a little bit more content in your lives, maybe some great pro Q&As that do dovetail very much into the world of crypto and volatility and all the fun stuff we touch on this show, then by all means, head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That's the place to go to learn more, listeners, as we learn who's joining us on the old Crypto Rundown this week. I'm pleased to welcome back our old friend, Mr. Bill Ulivieri, the principal over there at Cenacle Capital Management, a.k.a. the guy who's bridging the gap between traditional investments and digital assets. Also the author of the seminal tome on how to keep those digital assets should the worst befall you in your estate planning. Mr. Bill, welcome back to the show, sir.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back and great to be a part of the show once again.
How go things in the life of an esteemed crypto author, sir?
You are too kind. You are too kind. I'm not worthy to even share the radio waves with you, the bandwidth of the internet for that compliment. But the question I want to ask you is, did you save your SBF swag from the big event?
I never got any SBF swag. If I indeed did, what we would end up doing is giving it away to our pro members in their pro trading crates. So we've sent some cool stuff out the door over the last few years. I look at it like, wow, we're giving that away, huh? That's probably pretty valuable. And you're right, we probably would have had some of that too to give away. So that's another reason, listeners, to head on over to the pro. You never know what you're going to get in those pro trading crates, but you know what you're going to get when it comes time to the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's commence operations out here on the show. It's been a little bit since we gathered here together on the show, 2 weeks now. And man, Bill, the last time you were on the show with us back on January 8th, sir, Bitcoin was only 21,000 handles lower, or pretty close to it. We're at about a 46,000, almost 47,000 and change. We're at a 67,048 now, Mr. Bill, which is kind of fascinating. Kind of puts it in perspective. So, Bill, if every time you come on, Bitcoin's going to gap 21,000, not bad for the holders. What do you think?
Well, I think it's terrific. I mean, the approval by the SEC to allow and permit the spot to Bitcoin ETFs happened on January 11th. I think the amount of money, like net inflows, was maybe $2.5 billion between now and then. I have to double check my statistics, but the volume and these exchange traded funds, across, all 11 of them or 14 assets, funds that exist, it was like almost $150 billion since January 11th. I mean, this is just setting new records. It's blowing the doors off of everything. And, the question is the trend going to continue between now and the end of the year? And the truth is we're not really sure. I think so, but maybe just not at this rate. Because you can see it's pulled back a little bit from the high of around 73,000 that we made like just March 14th, I think it is.
So you're saying we can't expect 20K every time you come on the show, Bill? I mean, we're kind of used to it now.
Well, trees don't grow to the skies, and neither does the NVIDIA or Bitcoin. So we just have to be a little bit more prudent, and we don't want to get too excited to the upside. We don't want to get too negative on the downside, Mark. So you know how the traders are. As much as we love math and statistics and standard deviations, we're also an incredibly emotional group. So we have to keep that emotion in check.
Imagine if we had a show just called NVIDIA and Bitcoin, how many people would flock to it? It'd be huge. That's all anybody wants to talk about. NVIDIA and Bitcoin right now. Sprinkle maybe a little bit of VIX in there and a few other things in, and you're good to go. Speaking of being good to go, or perhaps not so much, interestingly enough, listeners, I just talked about how, how much Bitcoin is moving with every one of Bill's appearances. And yet, when we look back to our last episode, a whole 2 weeks ago, which is an eternity in the crypto space now, has Bitcoin moved a bunch? The answer, at least net show to show, is no, not at all. We were at 67,309 2 weeks ago, 67,48 right now. So you're down a couple of hundred handles, 261 to be precise, over the last couple of weeks. Of course, as Bill alluded to, we got much higher. Intra show, we got up to about 73, about 73, 278 or so. That was on last Wednesday, March 13th. The low came 63,767. That was on Tuesday, March 5th. So we did a lot of living in between the shows, but it nets out to a whole lot of nothing right now, almost literally unched, which is kind of fascinating and very difficult for Bitcoin to pull off over 2 weeks. As a result, we're seeing the vol, as you might expect, coming in a little bit. It was a 78 2 weeks ago on the show, 73 and a third right now. That's our 7-day, so our weekly vol. Let's go out a little bit farther. Let's go out to a more standardized metric. Let's go out 30 days. 2 weeks ago, it was 74 and a half 30-day vol. Right now, 72 and a half. So coming in about 2 points. Obviously still frothy. It wasn't that long ago on the show. We were in a 20s on the 30-day vol in Bitcoin. So 72, obviously fairly juicy, but coming in a little bit from what it was 2 weeks ago. The exception, the lone exception to the rule, is the 6-month, the longer term, the 180-day vol, listeners. That was about 73 and a third 2 weeks ago, 79 and a half right now. So maybe they're feeling a little bit of pressure right now in the near term, but longer term, they're still feeling frothy, feeling juicy. Nearly an 80 vol going out 6 months. So holders are going to hodl, listens. In terms of the skew, let's get out to the skew, listeners, and see what's going on out there. And, the answer is kind of along the similar lines, listeners. The 7-day skew, listeners, right now, minus 2.9, so swinging actually in the negative direction. So we went from positive 7.5 2 weeks ago to almost a negative 3 right now. So at least in the near term, again, we have retreated off the highs, so not as surprising to see a little bit of bearish sentiment sneaking in there. On the 7-day, that is the case. We go out 30 days, listeners, out a full month. 2 weeks ago, we were at a positive 7, so feeling frothy, feeling our oats, feeling upside bias. Coming in to start our show today, exactly flat. So no bias in any direction, which again, maybe shows you, at least for right now, Bitcoin going to kind of vacillate around these levels. At least that's what the options are telling us out there. And we go out a full 6 months, listeners. The hodlers are going to camp out there. They were at a positive 7.6 this time 2 weeks ago. Today, still positive, but 6.25. So coming in a little bit. Mr. Bill, anything surprising you out there on the vol or skew front out there in your favorite holding Bitcoin, sir?
This is really interesting, Mark. And I think you'd agree with this, is sometimes we notice things happening in the marketplace and we don't exactly understand why, but we do take note of what's happening. And I'm a little bit surprised at the flatness of the skew in Bitcoin, but I will tell you this. And again, as I prepare for the show, if you take Bitcoin and divide it by the US dollar and multiply that number by 100 and then use it as a ratio, Bitcoin is actually lower now than it was at our 2021 highs, in November of 2021. And it's lower than the highs that we put in, say, in March of 2021. So I don't want to say it's this triple top action, but I find it really interesting. And again, I'm not sure what it means, but for all the FOMO that we've had of Bitcoin, for all the talk of the stock to flow ratio and new highs, all the incredible billions of dollars flowing into Bitcoin, I have to admit, listening to your skew numbers and the way we have almost this triple top going back to, twice in 2021 and now in 2024, I would be tempted. If I was back on the trading floor, I would be buying that call skew and selling short, some of these Bitcoin futures or ETFs. I'm a little bit nervous. That's really interesting. I expected the upside skew to be way higher than what you produced.
Interesting. Mr. Bill, looking at some trades out there on the skew. You're right. Yeah, we haven't seen for a little while Bitcoin skew this neutral, this kind of flat, which again is kind of interesting in and of itself. Is the OI out there on Deribit interesting? The answer is kind of. Depends where you're looking. Right now, 200,000 calls open exactly on Deribit. It's up 47,000. So new OI popping up on the call wing. The puts, not so much. 114,000 down 64,000. So people taking a whole bunch of puts off the tape out there since our last show, which is interesting as well. Let's keep on rolling it to some of the other products you folks like to trade that are certainly Bitcoin related and also optionable. Bitto, of course, at least for right now. Bill, I don't know, have you been wringing your hands over the lack of options on these newly approved Bitcoin ETFs? That's one of the things I was talking to a lot of folks down at the FIA conference about last week. Is, what's the deal with these? Usually we see the options within a couple of days. Sounds like right now the SEC okay with approving the underlying, but if you want to buy a call on that, that requires many more months of study, sir. Kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, let's be patient. I mean, baby steps. I'm okay with it. Yes, I would love to be trading Bitcoin options. I think that would be amazing. And I think that when they do get approved and they begin rolling this out, there's going to be massive volume numbers in this, just like we saw with the VIX. But yeah, I'm not that worried. I mean, I'm just grateful that we have approval from the SEC on Bitcoin, and I'm okay with not having options. I just would like to see some other cryptocurrencies get approved for ETFs as well, like the Ethereum and Ethereum Classic and any of the other products really that were formerly closed-end trust funds or grantor trust funds from Grayscale. And I think we need to, again, be patient, and this stuff will roll out when the time is right.
Bill, ever patient, ever optimistic. I'll be the resident skeptic here, Mr. Bill. I think kind of crazy. You prove the underlying, then you should be able to buy a call on it. It's not like you're adding demonstrably to the risk in that scenario. But I digress, Mr. Bill. We'll all be pleasant. We'll take your tone. We'll be optimistic with the regulators.
You can buy an inverse fund in Bitcoin, but you can't buy a call option. Yeah,
I know.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm not saying it's not crazy. I'm just saying I'm trying to be patient.
You can buy the Bitcoin levered funds or indeed inverse, but you can't touch an option. Yeah, that's our modern regulatory environment for you, listeners. Instead, let's keep on rolling. Let's stop hand-wringing over the regulators. BITO right now, again, kind of pulling off the same feat that Bitcoin just pulled off, literally unched over the last 2 weeks. That's an impressive thing to do. Very hard, landed on the head of that pin and that proverbial bullseye. 30 3/4 2 weeks ago, 30 3/4 right now. So it did literally nothing net over the last 2 weeks, except shoot up from an ADV perspective. 131,000. That's the ADV right now. It's up 51,000. I'll have to go check. That's towards the highest BITO has ever been. It may have come in a little bit over the last week and change from a higher level, but back when it first launched and everyone was obsessed with BITO, it was the only game in town from an optionable Bitcoin perspective that you could put in your securities account. It was doing around 100,000 contracts a day. So obviously well north of that right now, which is fascinating. Today looking actually kind of light, 68,000. That would have been hot not that long ago. Right now it's actually kind of light compared to 131. The vol in the BITO right now in 81, down about 4 points from where we were 2 weeks ago. If you're looking at the size positions out there in BITO options, it's 101,000 of the Jan 2025 30s, 3 O's, now obviously in the monies. These used to seem pretty far out of the money not too long ago, and now they are indeed in the money calls. I've expressed my viewpoint on having long-term call positions on a product like BITO that is such a heavy dividend-paying instrument. The dividend yield on this thing is crazy, so I don't love that because you're not getting the dividend, obviously. The most recent dividend was ridiculous, something around, I think, 73 cents per share. You don't see that too often, listeners. So, yeah, that's an interesting one, but still dominating the tape, followed by 71,000 of the Jan 35 calls. So interesting stuff out there. Let's go out to Mara, another one that you folks are slinging hot and heavy out there these days, listeners. And Mara, 19.4 down, almost 5.5 handles, 540 from our last show 2 weeks ago. That's another one that's been all over the place from a price perspective, down to almost 15, up to almost 30, down to almost 15 again, just in the span of the last couple of months. So this thing's done a lot of living. And over the course of the last weeks, lost about $5.50. The ADV also looking pretty frothy, 472,000. It's actually down 18,000 from our last show 2 weeks ago. But again, you're talking almost VIX numbers, nearly 500,000 contracts a day. That's pretty impressive. Today, also looking kind of light, only about 200,000 contracts on the tape. So not a lot driving the crypto-related options volume today. The vol, though, still frothy at a 131 out there right now, down about 10 points from where it was 2 weeks ago. If you're wondering what the size position is out there in Mara options right now, it is 24,000 of the April 30 calls. So again, we're at a 1940. We were threatening 30 not too long ago. Now, unfortunately, that is pretty far in the rear view mirror, but those calls are still open. Hey, given the way this thing moves, we could be back there again in a couple of days. So 24,000 of those, followed by 23, almost 24,000 of the Jan 2025 10 calls. Those are certainly pretty interesting right now as well. Not looking quite as rich as they were, let's say, a couple of weeks ago. Let's see what else is cooking and looks a little different than it did 2 weeks ago, listeners, because it is time for the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we break down everything moving outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now. When we look at the top 10 out there, and the top 10 has been fascinating. We could do a whole show just on the moving and shaking that's been going on out here over the past couple of months, listeners. A lot of evolution, especially on the bottom half of our top 10. Let's see who fought their way into the top 10 this week, shall we? Number 10, it's Bill's favorite. It's Dogecoin holding on to their spot in the top 10 yet again, listeners, with about $20.5 billion worth of market cap. So all you out there who were hoping meme coins got kicked to the curb, not this week. Doge clinging to the number 10 spot. Number 9, Cardano, 23 and about $250 million worth of market cap. Number 8, it's Avalanche. So Avalanche climbing back up there, 23.8 billion worth of market cap. Number 7, USD coin, almost 31 billion worth of market cap. Number 6, XRP. It seems like we kind of sprinkled a little pixie dust on it when we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, saying, man, what's going to happen to this? What's it going to take to really move this thing? And then it popped. And then maybe not so much. Right back down to number 6 again, 33.1 billion. Like anything else in XRP, these moves are unfortunately short-lived. Number 5, BNB, it's 82.1 billion. Number 4, it's Solana. Man, this thing, a lot to talk about in Solana. 88.3 billion with a market cap. Number 3, it's Tether. Of course it is, 103 billion. Number 2, it's ETH, 420 billion with a market cap. And number 1 is Bitcoin, 1.3 trillion worth of market cap. Mr. Bill, a lot going on out in the altcoin universe. Let's start in your favorite, which is ETH, currently number 2 in market cap, number 1 in a lot of people's hearts. I think your heart as well. Let's see. On the show 2 weeks ago, we were at 35.95. Coming in, start the show today, 34.92. So down a little over 100 handles over the span of the last 2 weeks. Of course, we did threaten more upside. Got north of 4,000 briefly. 40.71 on March 11th. And then the low came pretty much this morning, at least over the last 2 weeks, 34.78 on the show. Mr. Bill, sir, what's catching your eye out there in your number 2 favorite, or maybe number 1? It is ETH, sir. What's catching your eye this week?
Well, I'm looking at Ethereum, and again, it has not made a new high in the mid to late 2021 time period. In the spring of 2021, I'm still watching these relationships between Ethereum, cryptocurrency, and the US dollar. But I will say that one thing that's really caught my eye is Ethereum Classic. And we can talk a little bit more about that.
All right, looks like we kind of lost Mr. Bill a little bit. So tell you what, we'll get him back in a second, listeners. Yeah, ETH Classic. That's an interesting one. It'd be nice to see maybe that one make a little bit of a move out there. But speaking of moves, as we work to get Mr. Bill back, let's go on to the land of ETH. Vol-wise, we're looking at, again, a fairly frothy product, all things considered. 2 weeks ago, the vol was a 77. This week, 74.5. That's in the weekly, the 7-day vol. Let's go out a full month. Let's go out 30 days. It was 72.5 a month ago. 72.5 exactly at the start of our show today. So 30-day vol literally unched in ETH, which should tell you something out there. Going out a little bit longer term, 180 days. The vol out there, 72.3 2 weeks ago, 79.5. So following that same pattern of Bitcoin, which is the longer term vol, getting a little bit juicier, a little bit spicier out there, which is kind of interesting. Skew wise, let's see what we find out there. Last week, the show, we were positive. We were positive 5. So looking strong upside bias, which again makes sense. We were feeling our oats out there this time 2 weeks ago. Coming into the start of the show this week, that is gone. We have now retreated the other way, going almost -10, -9.5. So all that upside juice from 2 weeks ago gone, and now we're heavily biased towards the downside, at least in the weekly skew. Let's go a little bit farther out. Let's go out to a 30-day skew. Positive again 2 weeks ago, about 5.25. Coming into the start of the show today, almost a -6, -5.75. So swinging over 10 handles to the dark side direction out there. And longer term, let's see if the hodlers are giving up the ghost as well. And last show 2 weeks ago, +8. Coming in and start of the show today, +7.5. So things still looking juicy and still looking bid to the upside going out 6 months. So Mr. Bill, do we have you back, sir? A and B, what are your continued thoughts on ETH and all this skew and vol data we're laying down here?
Well, I'm loving the outlook in Ethereum. I mean, it still has a little bit more upside to go. Again, I think the all-time high was roughly 5,100, I think, in the actual token. So we still have some way to go. We're at 3641. There was a recent upgrade called Decun, DECUN, I believe, and I don't really have my thumb on that anymore ever since Ethereum went to staking rather than proof of work. But again, we have to expect and anticipate volatility in all these alternative asset classes. It's just the way it is. I mean, we're still at the beginning of this road. I still love Ethereum, still one of my favorites. It's my number two, as you say. And I think that this ETF will be approved in 2024. But again, let's not get too carried away with things. But very happy to see continued upside bias and bullishness in all the big names, right? Like the magnificent seven of crypto that you went through, including our friend Doge, which still blows me away.
Before we lost you, you mentioned something about ETH Classic as well. Was catching your eye out there?
Yes. Again, not financial advice, but just something I would like your listeners to keep track of. And this could be a big money maker, I believe. So if you look at Ethereum Classic as the token is trading roughly $30.75 per token. But the Grayscale Trust, which invests in Ethereum Classic, is trading at $14.58. So that's like a 51% discount to net asset value. And I think if Ethereum and Ethereum Classic get submitted for ETF approval, and the SEC approves the Ethereum, conversion to an ETF, you have to assume that the same thing with the Ethereum Classic is going to happen with what happened in Bitcoin. That discount to net asset value is going to greatly close. And so I asked myself, if the main premise of Grayscale was to petition the SEC to unlock shareholder value that was stuck in these closed-end trusts, when Ethereum is approved, I think Ethereum Classic is going to close that gap of roughly 50%. And all cryptocurrency really has had a bit of a pullback in the last week or so. And part of it, I think, was just the rumor that the SEC was going to move again very slowly on the Ethereum conversion to an ETF and create spot Ethereum ETF. So more news to follow. I'm just keeping an eye on it. I personally bought some Ethereum Classic, the ETCG for my own accounts for a couple of our degenerate clients in our IRAs. So just something to keep an eye on, Mark. I think there could be a really good opportunity for the patient Ethereum Classic holder.
I didn't realize the Grayscale Trust invested in ETH Classic. I thought they just bought old plain vanilla ETH. So that's interesting. I'll have to go dig into that a little bit. So you think, kind of like the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, we might see that discount vanish, sir?
Yeah, I think so. And remember, Ethereum and Ethereum Classic is like Coke and New Coke. Like the Ethereum Classic is almost like the original Coke. And Ethereum Classic is more like the original Coke, and Ethereum is like New Coke. Because remember, they had a hard fork. They split the chain a number of years ago. And Ethereum Classic, that block size, right, that the size of the block file it's huge compared to the one in regular Ethereum. And again, I just remember, my memory is not as strong with that as it should be, but that happened a number of years ago. Ethereum Classic is really the true quote unquote original Ethereum chain. Before there were some hacks and the foundation got hit for millions of dollars, and they did a hard fork of the token. So I would encourage your listeners to do their research, go back and do an historical investigation. I'm not saying that Ethereum Classic has the developer and cases that traditional Ethereum does in terms of staking and time value that's locked in the contract. I'm just saying that Ethereum Classic is a closed-end trust that Grayscale holds, and it's at about a 51% discount to net asset value. So if you believe the industry and you believe that the asset is in a positive secular trend, which I do believe, and you believe that the SEC is becoming more friendly with cryptocurrencies assets, as I believe, and you believe that Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, who said that all assets will be tokenized, like I believe, then it might be worth a shot for the degenerate trader to own some ETCG.
Yeah, I have a bunch of good old ETH Classic burning a hole in one of my wallets out there. I remember picking up a bunch back in the day, Mr. Bill. Then talking to a lot of ETH heads who said, "Oh, ETH Classic, they had the fork. You're right, they had the hacking issues, and they kind of talked me off of getting more of it." But you're right, I didn't even realize Grayscale had the ETH Classic Trust out there. So there you go, listeners. If you want to play along on that one, and maybe taking a drubbing today off about nearly 7%, trading at $14.50. But you're right. Roughly 50% of what ETH Classic itself is trading at right now. So very intriguing stuff out there. If that gets approved, you would think if past is prologue, that discount would probably vanish. So intriguing stuff out there. If you want to take a flyer on ETH Classic, you don't want to buy ETH Classic itself for 2x the price. Maybe a little bit of ETH Classic Grayscale Trust. There you go, Mr. Bill. That's why we bring you on the show. It's these fun little nuggets like this, sir.
Little nuggets. That's all it is. We're just diversifying our portfolio with undervalued assets.
It's all about the little nuggets here. And speaking of maybe little nuggets, maybe not that little anymore, Mr. Bill. This Solana thing is just, it's been just fascinating to watch. It wasn't that long ago everyone had written it off for dead. It was well sub $20, got down to I think around 14, maybe 9. I forgot what the exact low was, but it seemed like it was dead. We had written it off here on the show. We used to talk about it on the show on a regular basis from a growing options perspective. All of that went the way of the dodo post FTX. All of that now in the rearview mirror, Mr. Bill. Solana on the show 2 weeks ago, a little bit shy of 130, 129.65, which is already extremely lofty. Had shot up exponentially. And now coming to start the show today, 198.82, nearly $200 for Solana, Mr. Bill. Up nearly 70 handles, 69 and change over the course of the last few weeks. So just a ton to unpack out there. A lot going on actually today in Solana. There's a lot of chatter about this secretive, quote unquote, pre-sale for an pretty much undisclosed AI project. Someone came out on Twitter with the handle Dexter and just said, hey, we're going to do an AI project on Solana, saying it's going to be super ambitious, blah, blah, blah. No real details. Didn't stop people from flocking into this project. They accumulated 159,300 SOL tokens in less than an hour, driving 33 million worth, again, of these tokens for this project out there. So just saying those two words together, AI and Solana, bam, 33 million in under an hour. No one really knows what's going on with this, but that's also obviously a key driver of the action we're seeing out there today. Back, speaking of action, since we did our last show, listeners, our friends over there at Amber Data have now reincorporated Solana options data because Deribit's listing them again, and we're seeing some flow out there. So we're starting to have a little bit of nuggets out there in terms of some insight into what's going on from an options perspective. Maybe, dare I say it once again, the burgeoning Solana options market as kicking off the show. Not a ton of paper, but it's starting to grow. We're seeing right now open on Deribit 15,000 calls and 10,500 puts. Now, obviously, compare that to more established entities like ETH out there with 2.14 million contracts open on ETH calls, up 320,000 this week, and the puts 1.01 million, up 200,000. Solana has a long way to go to catch up to that, but starting to grow again. 7-day vol, you can't look askance at that. 140 right now, which, by the way, that's the only data we have. We just have weekly data. I'm sure they're going to add more as the flow continues and they add more months and strikes and everything. But right now, 7-day vol, 140. 7-day skew, not looking that bullish right now, negative 13.5. So a lot to unpack here. I got the feeling, Mr. Bill, we're going to be talking about Solana a lot in the coming weeks and months. What are your thoughts on this? This crazy secretive AI pre-sale that went on this morning, drove 33 million in Solana sales on that alone, and then see the fact that we're starting to see a nascent options market pop up again for Solana.
Super exciting, Mark. I mean, yes, you label anything AI and you're going to get incredible activity and engagement. And just like we saw with the FANG stocks and BRIC stocks and PIG stocks, Portugal, India, Greece, Italy, Greece, and Spain, this whole AI thing might actually, I don't want to call it a bubble, right? Just like, that's not the correct term either, but I'm still struggling with what it means to be an AI company. I mean, there's Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, and like Palantir. Like this is AI. Like it's too soon for me to really wrap my arms around what AI really means and how it can be allocated, by investment professionals. And once again, Solana has not reached and traded above its 2021 peak of 259.95. That's what my data shows, 259.95. And, there's apparently Solana is very fast. It's not money per se, but it's just a fast platform that developers are creating and building things on. I mean, there's plenty of use cases. I find it super exciting. And I'm not a Solana expert, but it seems to be an incredibly fast way of processing transactions and updating the blockchain although they do go down like 4 times a year. Like there's a problem with their chain. So when they work the kinks out of that, then we'll probably see, greater engagement and greater use built on the Solana chain. But I think it's a really interesting platform, what I know of it, and I'm looking forward to learning more because, again, Solana is a true project. Really hasn't come across my desk as much. I would say, with the exception of like the last 8 weeks, it seems like the name is picking up steam in terms of its use case.
It's picking up steam across the board out here. So, yeah, definitely will be interesting to watch. Who'd have thought, Bill, when all the wreckage was assembling post-FTX, that Solana would have this phoenix-like rise from the ashes out here. Fascinating stuff out here. We thought that might be happening with XRP for a brief minute. Spoiler alert, the answer is no. 65.1 cents 2 weeks ago, 60.2 cents. So it gave up all that upside and dropped another nickel on top of it. So no love for XRP. Doge, you talked about it 2 weeks ago, 17.6 cents, 14.2 cents. So coming down a little over 3 cents, but still managing to hold on to its place in the top 10 out there. Our old friend Litecoin, 89.25 2 weeks ago, 82.25 this week. So down pretty much exactly 7 handles. Cardano, 77 cents 2 weeks ago, 65 cents this week. Getting a little bit of a trend here, listeners. Polkadot, 9.93 2 weeks ago, 9.78 this week. And everyone's favorite, good old Shiba, giving back some of its luster that it gained over the last month or so. It was 0.000033 2 weeks ago. This week it is a whopping 0.000026. All right, Mr. Bill, that music means we come to the end of another fun sojourn through the world of crypto. But before we go, any other fun altcoin burning a hole in your pocket you want to tell people about? Have at it, sir.
Okay, so this is not one that I'm recommending for purchase because, frankly, I don't even know if you can purchase it yet on index. But there's something really interesting that came across my desk this morning as I was arguing with a friend of mine about inflation on Facebook. And government statistics are showing inflation somewhere between, 3.5%, 3.75%. And this organization, this project called Trueflation, came out with a calculation on inflation, and they put it like at 23% annually. And so we were arguing back and forth. My friend and I were arguing back and forth about like what really is inflation? What does it mean? How do you calculate it? Is inflation really higher than what we see from government statistics? And the CPI index, the Consumer Price Index, calculates goods and services that people use on 200 products. The Trueflation cryptocurrency token is like a blockchain-based analytics, like an index. And they have 18 million items indexed in their real-time, quote-unquote, real-time blockchain index. And I just find it really interesting. So I'm not saying you should buy it. I have no idea how to monetize this other than that decentralized infrastructures need real asset metrics, in like real-time, real world, not just ones that are the basket that's changed by our hierarchical centralized organizations. And so just find it really, really interesting. Again, not every token you can buy, or you might not even, you want to look at to put in, but this decentralized physical network that is going to be, part of the Oracle's, not Oracle as the company, but Oracle as truth of information in order for smart contracts and AI that runs on the internet to be able to make decisions. And so I just think it's really an interesting project, and just to learn about how does information governed in the world of the internet, and especially in blockchain projects. Because if we're moving billions and trillions of dollars around on the blockchain, if smart contracts are going to be self-executing, you need to have real-time, real-world accurate information. And I think that's what Trueflation is trying to build. So Trueflation.com, I don't know much more about it than what I started researching today. It just might be a fun project to learn about for your listeners.
Well, in the meantime, if people want things they can buy, Mr. Bill, where should they go to check out your book?
Yes, for those listeners who own cryptocurrency and you want to begin a conversation with your estate planning attorney or financial planner, please go to Amazon.com and do a search for cryptocurrency estate planning, and my book will come down in about the third one down from the list. So the Essential Estate Professionals Toolkit for Recovering Cryptocurrency. Your spouses will thank you, your estate planners will thank you, your estate planning attorneys will thank you, and their clients will also thank you if you buy a copy for yourself and perhaps one for your estate planning attorney or accountant, financial advisor. So yes, the Essential Estate Professionals Toolkit for Recovering Cryptocurrency.
There you go. Check him out over there on Amazon or wherever you get your favorite books, listeners. And of course, check out our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. That's going to do it for us on the network today. Back again with our usual array of content. For a lot of you who are new to the world of options, make sure you join us on Wednesday, or of course, join us after the fact on demand, wherever you get your favorite podcast, for our educational content like Options Bootcamp. That will really help you out understanding a lot of these terms that we're bandying about all the time, like skew and volatility and all these other things. If you're a little bit new to the world of options, Options Bootcamp will serve you well. Also, a couple of 100 episodes of Options Playbook Radio waiting there for you as well. So a lot of great content for you folks to sink your teeth into. And of course, this week in Futures Options, we do touch on some of the listed crypto products at CME. That's on Thursday. If you like a little bit of vol talk, Friday volatility views, if you like a little bit more what's trading, all that kind of fun, then check out the option block right before this show on Monday, as well as, of course, on Thursday. And then we're back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.